All right, we're live.
Hello, and welcome on into another Monday Live with the Whiskey Crusaders. I'm Will.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Matt.
Today we are joined by Josh with Still Austin down in Austin, Texas, of all places. Matt, who we got in the chat with us so far?
All right, who do we have? We have Mark, JG, the Linux Cat, Eric W, Trev Wilson, Dram Band, thank you, ma'am, Donald Rance, Kilco, Ben Stahl, Steve A. Let's see here. Whoa, crap. You know, that's the thing you forget about now when you have monetization. The chat goes crazy because it starts later. Okay, there it goes. Sorry about that. All right, Chris Beaton, Ice House. Let's see. Whiskey, Ben, Demon Hunter, Jason the Mash and Drum, Christopher David, Robot Scott, Spencer Mav, Jason Coates, King Jack D, Andrew Sproul. Good to see everybody this evening. So, we're going to talk about Still Austin. I guess, Josh, you want to introduce yourself and talk about Still Austin?
Sure. Hey, guys. My name's Josh Madere.
Hello.
I lead our tours and our education at Still Austin. So I'm basically our resident nerd. I'm here for the tricky stuff. It's kind of a lot of different things, whether it's supporting sales, marketing, tasting room staff, training tour guides, training anyone really. That's pretty much my wheelhouse. My business card says Whiskey Wizard on it because it's just vague enough. Kind of a Renaissance theme with you Crusaders there.
I thought that was awesome.
Just a bunch of whiskey nerds, and we're trying to make something of craft, of quality, and of significance to us here in Austin. I'm down in Austin. It comes with the name, Still Austin. When we were actually shopping for stills, you're seeing the word still all the time. And so we were thinking like, well, the thing Austinites like to do most is kind of gripe about how much Austin's changed. As so many things have happened in Austin over the last several decades. But at the end of the day, it's still Austin. And there's something about the identity that's more than just, buildings and streets. It's a people. And so that's what the name's really trying to honor, is the kind of timelessness of an identity and a sense of place and who we are. We opened our doors to the public in September of 2017. So just about, 2.5 years. Time's flying. 2.5 years ago. Took 2 years of construction before that to get everything going. We are in South Central Austin, founded by Austinites, with the sense of, hey, we've seen what's happened in the craft beer scene and wondering about craft distillation. Now, it turns out starting a distillery takes a lot more energy and money than opening a brewery. You can home brew in your garage and you can home distill in your garage, but to go legit takes quite a bit.
Yeah.
So we've been cranking away. Our goal from the start was always to make bourbon. As you know, bourbon is America's spirit in law and in concept. And so we knew we wanted to start there. Texas is known for its agriculture through the ages. And so we wanted to start with bourbon, but we also want to play. So we do other things, play with different types of grains, heirloom varietals. We have a sustainability focus where we're interested in preserving as much as possible in our community and in our climate. We have frequent drought-like conditions. I grew up downstream of Still Austin. So the idea of Austinites just consuming all this water, so downstream the ranchers couldn't get any, it's not a good thing. So our mindset's always been, how can we support our community in an honest and sincere way? We don't believe in bullshit, to be honest with you. I figure we're on a whiskey.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I think I can say that.
You can say whatever you want.
There's a lot of misinformation in this industry, and our belief is that at the end of the day, like, the facts should speak. All for marketing, all for telling a story, but we just want to cut the crap and tell you like it is. So we're very focused on transparency. We want to bring you in, show you around the tasting room, the distillery, and let the questions fly, I guess.
That's perfect. Yeah, I also want to point out that Ed from Rock Out Review and My Bourbon Journey, Scott, are in here. We wanted to thank them for being on our 7 hours of streaming for the 1,000 on Saturday night. So that was a good time.
Along with Pit Face Barbecue.
Anyway, dude and I are.
Brian,
Oh, and Brian's. Oh, Brian. So that's right. Brian's here too. He was also on with us talking about barbecue and Booker's. So thank him as well. But yeah, so anybody that's new tonight or doesn't know, we are monetized now, so just want everybody to know that. So, which is awesome.
Yay!
Congrats on 1,000, y'all.
Thank you.
Really cool.
Yes, indeed. That was a long day.
That was a long day.
Well,
We did a 7-hour stream.
And then I did another 2-hour yesterday. Yeah.
I dropped by for a minute of it.
yes, I saw you in there.
Yeah, we did. Appreciate it.
Well, I've already poured. I've already started smelling and tasting. But we're starting with the first release of your bourbon is what we have poured in our glass first. We were actually gifted a lovely bottle of it, and we've been nursing it and enjoying it and sampling it out to friends and such.
Awesome.
Yeah, I enjoy this. Yeah. And then I remember tasting the second batch at the ball,
Mm-hmm.
and I have yet to taste
The third batch, but we have
but
it
we
in
have
front
it
of us.
tonight, so
Yay.
I'm excited.
Yes, we can thank Josh. He actually came up here. I guess what was that? Several months ago at this point. But this is the first one, everybody. This is the batch one. What it looks like, it's a brownish label. And you get to come up here and hang out and check out all the whiskey that was here. So it was a good time.
Yeah, and
bring us a couple
we
bottles.
happened to be leaving as he was coming in, and just says, "Here, cool, okay."
I was like, whiskey.
Whiskey!
Yay!
Exactly.
All is right in the world.
And we came home and we drank it and we enjoyed it.
We did.
Yeah. We like it a lot. So, tell us about this batch one.
Totally. So one of the things I think that will be fun for you geeks, is that it's going to change slightly between batches. Just the nature of small batch. You know, the term small batch, of course, is an unregulated term. I won't say who, but I know somebody who makes small batch, and it's 1,000 barrels, and that is definitely small to them. But the biggest tank we have can fit about 8 barrels. So I'm not trying to use the term small batch in a professional way. I'm just saying that I think we can all agree that 8 barrels is a little smaller than
Yeah.
people are doing. And the nature of that is that there's going to be some variability. There's going to be some change. There is a constant between these three. And so I want you to keep the majority of things the same. One is they're all just over 100 proof.
Okay.
We like it at 100.4. You geeks like to be real specific, but just over 100 proof. They're all going to be the same mash bill. It's 70% corn, 25% rye, and 5 malted barley. All of the grain is grown in Texas.
Nice.
That's really important to us in terms of talking about terroir. If we're going to talk about Texas whiskey, it should be more than just aged here. It should be grown here. It should be the whole process.
Absolutely.
Is Texan through and through. That said, we've only been open 2.5 years, and each of these are at least 1 year old.
Okay.
So each barrel individually from these 3 different batches is either between 1 year or 2 years old.
Okay.
The cool thing is seeing kind of a difference in the seasons and a difference in that kind of small batch nature, but I don't want to get ahead of us. I'm curious what you think of batch 1.
I think it's delicious. I know that much.
Oh, yeah.
I do too. Can you talk about the barrels that you're using? Because I'm not getting a 1-year-old whiskey out of this, or even just a 2-year-old whiskey. And I know that Texas tends to age things a little bit faster, but I mean, come on, it's
got the Texas stamp for sure.
It does.
The crazy thing is, even going into that, is we chose to do things to kind of slow down the process. So there's a couple hacks you can do to speed up your aging. You can use a smaller barrel.
Right.
Instead of using a 15 or a 30, we're going with 53-gallon barrels.
Oh, wow. So you guys started with 53s only?
Well, when we started, we did some 15s, some 30s, and some 53s. We did 3 different char levels.
Oh.
And we did 3 different Coopers.
Wow.
So you say each of these are going to be about 1 year old?
Mm-hmm.
Between 1 and 2.
Between 1 and 2. Do you have anything older that is still sitting there?
Yeah, we've got some, because we've been open about 2.5 years. We have stuff that we could release as straight right now. The primary focus, though, is for us, we want to make something quality. We want it to be good. And so, sure, we can release it as straight right at 2 years in a day or 2 years on the dot. But what if another month changes it? What if another month adds a bit more character? Our goal is when we want to release our straight bourbon, we want it to be something that we're proud of and ready to spread nationwide. So these 3 batches are our way of introducing ourselves to our Texan community, to our local community. But at some point, probably within the next year, we're almost definitely within the next year, we're going to go nationwide.
That was going to be my next question. How far out are you? Are you just in Texas right now?
Right now, we are only available in Texas.
Okay. All right. We got a couple of super chats, and then we'll get back to it. Okay, we got Brian, which is Pit Face Barbecue. Says, met Josh at the distillery a month and a half ago. Did our tour with my brother-in-law. Such a great time. Love the bourbon, and the coffee liqueur is great.
Cheers.
And we got another one from Robot Scott. Cheers to 1.5 subs. Thank you.
All right. 1.1 K.
The next one.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. So
Here.
you have the plans to release some single barrels in the future. It's just tinkering there for a little bit.
Yes, we will. We've got different mash bills. We've got different finishes. We've got 2 Pedro Jimenez casks right now.
Yeah.
Very nice. Huh?
No.
What was that last part?
We're trying things. So different casks. We recently got some oat. And so we have some barrels that have oated bourbon.
Cool.
We got some oat that was malted. Again, Texas grown oat, malted in Texas, that we're going to make a bourbon with. We've had some triticale. We've got some 100% rye that's resting. Some wheated bourbon mash bill.
Nice.
We've got 2 barrels of 4 grain. We've got one that we're calling Frankengrain.
The trickle, is that just sitting on its own, or is that part of a mash bill that's sitting somewhere?
I believe it's a 4 grain triticale. I could be wrong on that,
Okay.
but I believe it's corn, wheat, triticale, and barley. I could be wrong, but I believe that is.
And I heard you correctly when you said you had one sitting in ex Oloroso, or was it Pedro?
3 Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. One of them we aged bourbon in for 4 months after it was a 1-year bourbon, and that is really good. It is already gone. It's sorry to kind of show it off, but it's pretty much gone. There's just a few bottles left, kind of floating around in the back of my trunk.
Yeah, Ben Stahl brought some of that when he came up here. I want to say like November or something like that. I got to try his. It was really good.
I'm a little jealous.
Well, I've got 2 more casks that are aging right now.
Well, all right.
One has some bourbon in it,
That fixes it some.
and one has 100% rye in it.
Oh, that sounds awesome. You're like all the whiskey nerds' dreams, all these awesome grains and all the other cool stuff. Oh, yeah. Speaking of grains, can you talk about your corn? Can you talk about the actual grain? What type of grains are? I know we talked about corn and rye. Can you tell what kind of corn, what kind of rye and barley's in this?
Yeah, sure. So part of our mission being about sustainability and about local, we thought, hey, a lot of times the grain itself doesn't make a huge difference to many distillers. And our thought is that, hey, come on, let's celebrate this place and what we do. And down here, we eat a lot of Tex-Mex and a lot of tortillas. So that classic, I think if you go to other parts of the country, your corn tortilla is going to be yellow.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But down here, it's white. Just that kind of difference. It's a white corn. Deer corn is a similar kind of style. It's a bit more flavorful. And so we are using white corn that is non-GMO and either is from near San Antonio or is up from near you guys, a little bit north of Fort Worth.
Nice. Very nice.
We started with some wheat and laid some of that down first because we knew that wheated bourbon is just characteristically going to take a little longer. So it's just like when you start in Thanksgiving dinner, how you start with the things that are going to take the longest first. You don't start with your gravy first, you start brining. So we started with wheated bourbon first, laid down about 1,000 barrels, and then switched over to rye. And part of the reason for that is when we first opened, we didn't have Texas-grown rye, and we could find rye from further north, but we wanted to stick to that commitment of having Texas-grown grain only. So we built a partnership. We have really kick-ass rye. We're really proud of it. And so that's why we really enjoy the way it's representing itself today.
Fantastic.
Well, I'm looking forward to all this fun stuff coming on out of your distillery because I mean, I've enjoyed what I've had so far.
I'm excited about. You just said you laid down 1,000 barrels of it. What is your production capability? What do you typically? What kind of still are you running? How big is this thing?
Yeah, we've got a 42-foot tall column still. It was custom designed and built for us by Forsyths in Scotland.
Nice.
It's really big. We call her Nancy. She's named after a character from a sci-fi movie from the old days, Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. Classic, corny kind of sci-fi movie. In a sense, when you see her, I mean, she's kind of like our 50-foot lady. We had to build a tower in the middle of the warehouse. It's gigantic. It's 4 stories tall.
Crap.
But yeah, it's a continuous column still. We will do 2 ferments of each 1,800 gallons.
Wow.
And we'll run 2 of those in a day. So we've got 6 tanks. We do a 3-day fermentation. And so 2 of those 1,800-gallon tanks daily will get us enough barrel to make, after proof down, roughly between 10 and 12 barrels a day.
Okay, so it's pretty good production, yeah.
I like that.
What are you proofing down to before putting them in barrel?
We're
coming
off still at 140, and we're proofing down to 118.
Okay. So that's good. You guess that was the proof that you guys found was the perfect thing for you guys. Bourbon basically was 118 when it goes in.
Yeah, and I mean we tried things. To be frank, I think the best analogy I can think of is, I kind of think in cooking terms. That's my background, is from a food and beverage restaurant world. And I kind of think of it as like how the first pancake's always not the good looking one.
Right.
As you keep going, you get into the swing of it. By the time you run out of batter, they're just perfectly golden and stuff. You're crushing it, but that first one kind of burns a little bit, or it's a little weird shape. And it's just the nature, I think, of doing anything. Is that if you're not improving as you go, then what are you doing?
Yep.
So yeah, our thought was it took a lot of trial and error. We tried things. We, you don't know how it's coming until a year later. You don't know what it's going to be like in 3 years. So the idea is that experimentation, it's constant. So we're always self-reflective, looking at what we did and how we can improve and make the best whiskey we can.
Can you tell everybody how the column still works, just in general, just everyone that might not know? Because like most of our brands probably do pot still for the most part rather than column. So you just tell everybody how that kind of works. That'd be great.
Yeah, sure. A pot still in general is the concept of, let's say, so alcohol evaporates at a lower temperature than water. So it's just like when you make rice, or if I'm making jambalaya, how that water will stick to the lid. That is distilled water, effectively. The starch stays down in the rice. The distilled water is that condensation that's stuck up onto the lid. So if I stir my jambalaya and I pick up the lid and pull it off to the side and that water runs off, that is distilled water. So if you do that gradually enough, you can cook off the alcohol before the water itself boils. So that's distillation in a nutshell. Basically, the way a pot works is that at the top, instead of having a flat lid, it's got a neck that goes off. It's usually copper. So you want the gas of the alcohol to interact with the copper. Copper removes sulfur and will actually impact the flavor quite a bit of the distillate. And so you want to have some of those things pulled out. It kind of cleans it up. It's like a metallurgy. I know, sorry to get into alchemy, but essentially it refines and cleans up. That's what it is. I mean, it's old school alchemy. With a continuous column still, what you're doing is, instead of making your cuts with time, I know it didn't quite go into cuts, but I'm sure y'all mostly know the concept of that, with the heads, the heart, and the tails. On a pot still, first you get the heads, then you get the heart, then you get the tails. In a column, what it does is it changes that to, instead of being time, it switches it to space. So it's like a long, tall column. You pump the beer in halfway up, and it starts to fall. But there's these plates that kind of oscillate, and so it breaks up the fall. So the beer has to kind of zigzag down. Beer, of course, is the fermented grain. You pump steam in the bottom, and that steam vaporizes the alcohol out of it. So that vaporous alcohol will rise. And at certain points, you've got what are called rectifying trays. They're bubble plates. To oversimplify it, it looks like that little grate you use to stop up the kitchen sink. Flip that little thing over. There's holes in the top, so the alcohol can rise up. And as it does, the whole system is calibrated such that at each plate, there is a different temperature, meaning there's a different distillate. So at the highest, you'll get more heads. At the lowest, you'll get more tails because it's hotter at the closer to the steam, right? So a column can just keep going. You don't have to empty it, let the steam out, wash it out, take all the water and the grain, and then dump it and then refill it. Instead, you can just keep pumping it in. It's something that really revolutionized the distillation industry. Invented about 1823, depending on who you talk to, whether you like the coffee or the continuous, which came before the coffee. Anyway. But
it's a whole other story.
Yeah, it's been around a long time. Not as long as distillation. The pot still's been working since, I think, 1,000 years BC. It started getting good, or acceptable, I suppose, around the turn of the BCE to the CE. Jesus' time. So yeah, we've been making whiskey for a really long time. And with technology, we're just going to try to get better and better at it.
I like it.
So essentially, you're pulling out at a specific place. You're pulling it out at the heart's area.
Yeah. So
because you're saying that like the heads are going to collect up at the top, the tails are going to collect down here at the bottom. So you're going to be pumping in beer and pulling out it right where you want to be pulling it out.
Correct. And to get it even crazier, normally a column still will have 3 or 4. That's kind of the most common number of rectifying plates, which means that there's a difference. It's sometimes in a doubler, if you've seen that in a lot of Scotch pot still. Sometimes they'll catch it on that first run, and that goes through that secondary column, which has the rectifying trays. And so normally it will have 3 or 4. Ours has 12.
Nice.
It's kind of hard to overstate, like how crazy that is. It gives us tremendous precision over what's coming off of it. So the whole system is calibrated such that the heads actually don't condense. They remain gas, go past the plates, and completely are pulled out. The tails will continue, as you know about reflux, they'll condense, and then they'll drop back down, and then they'll get hot again. So eventually the tails will essentially be rectified into heart in real time. But because there's 12 of these trays, you can choose. Do you want to open up plate 7 or plate 9? You'll get a different flavor. And considering that we're trying to acknowledge that the grain varies, that our climate varies, that our skills are going to vary, that everything kind of varies, we want to be able to adjust those things in real time. And to get even crazier, I'll tell you that right now we have 3 of them open.
Okay.
So we've got 1, 10, and 12 are open. So we can taste it and decide, hey, is this a bit too oily? Is this a bit too flavorful? We can clean it up by taking it from 10 to 8 or from 12 to 11. Or if it's a little clean, a little too neutral, at 140 it's usually not. But then we can take it down and we can get it oilier and more viscous and more thick and get more of those nutty characteristics from the barley.
Okay, I'll stop you for 1 second.
Nice.
Comment. We got $5 from the Mash and Drum. Whiskey, bacon, Texas, cack, enough said. All right.
Said it wrong.
Excuse me.
Cheers, Jason. Even though he didn't say it right.
Here. Yeah, I know what the word is.
I'm moving on to batch 2 because I am out of whiskey in my glass, and I don't like to be out of whiskey in my glass.
That's not what we came here for, Will.
That is not what we came here for.
We came here for whiskey.
You did it enough. Thank you. So so when you say that the trays are open there, so you can taste it. But do you taste it at the bottom, or do you actually go into that tray and taste it when they're open like that? How does that usually work?
So it'll run right through a pipe. So it's kind of like it's capturing the distillate. It's what condenses on that tray. And so then I move out through a pipe and go down into our spirit safe. And that way we have the ability to have multiple trays that are blending together.
Okay, so it goes and drips off each one, and then you leave certain ones open or closed depending what flavor profile you're going for, and then you can taste it comes off. Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. That's the hardest thing, is like being so used to apostles, how the column still really works. So thank you for the explanation. That's awesome. It's one thing I don't know a lot about is how the column still works, so that's perfect.
It's not easy to explain, to be honest. It is kind of petroleum engineering.
Okay.
That's how you turn like crude oil into petroleum, is separating out the evaporation temperatures. There's a lot more PSI involved in that. Ours is just steam and graining.
Okay.
Alcohol. So it doesn't have to be an ExxonMobil factory kind of a thing.
Right. So there's usually 9 plates in when you guys run it, though, for the most part of the 12.
Right now we've got 3 of them open, and that's kind of our standard. Again, though, if we change grain, if we switch to wheated bourbon, if we do 100% rye, we might adjust. The idea is to kind of figure out what works well and replicate that and do that. But of course, have that kind of mindset of, hey, if there's a way to improve it, why not?
This one's
so when you add a plate, and let's say there's a 4th one open now, what does that do to it, just in general, usually?
Yeah, it'll change the mixture of it. So when it comes to, it's kind of like blending in real time without barrel aging. So you're blending different compounds as they're coming off of the still and getting a final new make that you want. So you may know when you're blending barrels, you may say, hey, this one's pretty sweet. And I've got another one that's pretty sweet. Do I want to blend those together so I have a sweet whiskey, or do I want to have a sweet one and a peppery one, or a sweet one and a smoky one? And kind of, let's say you'll take, 8 barrels and figure out, hey, what's this composition finished product supposed to look like?
Okay.
It's that same kind of idea, if that makes sense.
Okay, that makes more sense then. Okay. Yeah, it's just trying to concept something is always a different animal.
So we've poured batch 2, and I poured batch 1 some more in a different glass so I can compare. And right off the bat on the nose, batch 2 is a lot fruitier.
What kind of fruit?
More of the apple, more of the cherry pop forward.
Yeah.
Batch 1, they're there, but they're more muted.
It's more the baking spices up front on batch 1.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like an apple pie, and you also get some pear in there. Oh, that smells really good. Now, batch 2 is the reddish, is this reddish color label, and I know you can get this on the shelf for sure. So
yeah, I've seen it.
Texas. Let's put it that way.
In Texas.
Or drive to Texas and get one because it's really good.
I've seen it this far up, so.
It smells really good. So you said it's just a few months difference in age between 1 and 2, you said?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things about that is that, let's see.
Ooh.
It's been a while. Let me see if I can remember the difference. Batch 1 was...
It's a lot spicier.
Bottled in September.
Oh, yes. Pepper notes.
This batch 2
Doesn't come out as much.
was bottled in spring.
Sorry, we're talking
amongst ourselves.
There is a really, really nice spice to this one.
This one seems hotter.
It seems much hotter. It seems
in a good way.
Yeah, it drinks more like a OGD 114 with that bigger proof spike, a little bit more pepper to it.
But again, there's all the same proof, right?
Yeah, it's still 100 proof. It's actually a similar mash bill to OGD, so that's a fair connection. OGD is also a high rye bourbon.
Okay, so Baron installed the question.
Yeah.
He says, when Still Austin was first experimenting with batch 1 bourbon, did they know what profile they were on and coming off the still, and what chemical compounds they were looking for?
Yeah, totally. Great question. I would say that we had a sense of what we were doing because we can analyze the new make. I think it's a spectrometer where it will analyze exactly what compounds are in it. And so we can look at that and we can make some educated guesses of how that's going to develop in interaction with oak. On the other hand, terroir, right? The sense of space, the aging in this climate. Distilling in Texas legally is about 12 years old, so there's not tons of history in this information that we have, a century of this compound will turn into this kind of a note. So we had a sense what's going on. Our master blender is Nancy Fraley.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
There you go.
So you can kind of have a sense of what's going to happen. But then, it's an experiment. We're doing this in real time. And so, hey, let's see how it tastes. And what do we
I want
get?
to be really when I grow up.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I wish he was like my Patronus. Just like
Serious. I don't even know. Yeah. Yeah, I would love to be her. I would love to have her job.
All right, we got another question from AJ here. It says, let's say a random Texas were to saunter, I guess probably Texas, was to saunter down to Austin. Once all this was over, it's safe to say, would there be a chance that a Texan could sample some PX finished?
Short answer is yes. It's definitely a chance because, at the end of the day, like, look, we're trying to have fun. Now, I can't promise that we're all just going to, like, open up barrels for everybody.
Right.
Everybody. But, sometimes, we just like to taste stuff and talk about it. So when it's ready, that's when we feel like it'll shine. That's when we feel like it's developed the most. PX in particular is a little finicky. It'll be very sweet one day, and then a week later, it'll be kind of more nutty, like an Amontillado. A week later, you'll get this kind of spice from the rye. And then the next week, it'll go back to sweet. So it kind of changes on you. So what we're trying to do is maximize the quality and make that decision when it's best.
Now, on those PX ones, is it like a distillery only type thing, or is it going to actually make it out?
So it's not going to go into distribution. It won't be out on retail shelves. It'll only be available at the tasting room. So it won't even be at neighborhood bars and down the street from us.
Wah, wah, wah.
Okay, well, think of your friendly Crusaders when those come out. I will drive down and get one if you can put one aside because I love cherry finish.
I have a pair of Adidas that they're just not my size, and so there's this. I might have to send you some shoes. Obviously, I would never send alcohol. That would be illegal.
No.
We were speaking earlier. We have the same shoe size. Yeah, I like this plan. This is good.
Yeah. So the Adidas, though.
I like Adidas. I'm more of a Chucks girl, but I could dig some Adidas.
As long as you didn't say Crocs. So, we're fine.
No, Chucks.
Chucks. Oh, yeah, Chucks.
We had a Chucks and Tucks wedding.
Yes, we did.
Oh, adorable. That's awesome.
So, yeah, I really enjoy batch 2. I really enjoy how much bigger and louder it tries to demand your attention. Obviously it's not a higher proof, but it drinks like it's a little bit bigger. I want to taste things, right? Like I'm an Islay Scotch guy. I want my flavors to be demanding of my attention. And this does that. So I enjoy the heck out of it.
Okay,
I'm as well. I'm an Islay guy. I drink rye. I drink really high proofs. I like stuff that hurts me.
Yeah,
that's perfect.
I'm the high proof whore here. Yeah, I like the bigger the better.
So speaking, have you guys thought about doing a peated bourbon at all?
The topic has come up. We've talked about it. I think
you should talk more about it.
Well, our idea is, our sense of place.
Right.
Here, we're not exactly known for our moors.
Fair enough.
You know?
Right.
So it's smoked, maybe.
It's kind of been a joke, but we've talked about, I'm not sure I could say like as a company we've really addressed this, but like we've joked about maybe doing like a cow patty sort of a thing, like like Floki.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
You should totally do that.
Floki, it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's buzzing right now. It's the idea.
Exactly.
I think right now it's cool that cool ideas are catching hold.
I love the cow pie fired up.
Smells
That would be
like
awesome.
Any sort of smoked would be
Fine.
fine by me. Andalusia Striker is, comes to mind. It's not, it's not peat, but it's smoked, and I love it.
When we started, we had an experiment, one of the early ones, and it ended up not necessarily working out, but it was called Whisky.
Ooh, that
And
sounds good.
I love the name.
yeah, we thought we would take malted barley and we would smoke it on La Barbecue, which is a barbecue restaurant in Austin, on
Oh,
their
okay.
biscuit pits because they were closed on Sundays.
Mm.
So we'd
Gotcha.
smoke it. So it was vegetarian, right? We still had some of that kind of drippings from the brisket.
That's awesome.
We made a barrel. It didn't keep tons of the flavor, to be honest. It
No.
didn't taste necessarily savory. And we realized that you know how much work it is to smoke 4,000 pounds barley,
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of work.
like twice a
Yeah.
day?
Yeah.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
The barbecue wasn't open. They started opening on Sundays, so it's like it wasn't like something we could really kind of scale. And not every project is going to be something we can scale. Like from a business perspective, you want to have something that you can introduce with confidence to the whole country, to the whole world. And at the same time, you're artists, and you want to do something with creativity where you're bearing your soul and kind of opening up to what you can do. And so, yeah, we'll always do experiments and try things and get weird, play with different kinds of grain. But at the same time, we also want to kind of be in your liquor store where you are.
Sure.
That's an important part of selling whiskey.
Yeah.
All
Sorry,
right,
everybody else is not Texas.
We got another question from Ben. Says, any updates of the Distillers Reserve series like the PX? I know I talked to Josh about different finishes. Also, I cannot wait to run into Josh at 7 grand, even sometime soon, Whiskey Crusaders. That sounds good.
I miss 7 grand. So
Oh, I bet you do. Yeah.
I would be there 2 or 3 times a week. It's just my whiskey nerd heaven. And I was actually just talking to some folks about really wanting an asador taco because they have amazing tacos out there. Yeah, Ben, sounds like a plan. Let's have a dram and talk. When it comes to the Distillery Reserve series, again, we're just trying to make the best darn stuff that we can. So when each one of them is ready, I recommend the best way is to follow us on social media, get on our newsletter on our website at stillaustin.com or still_ATX on Instagram. You can find us on all the things, whether you're a Twitter person or a Facebook person. But we're going to announce to the world, we're really proud of what we're doing. And so we want you to come see us. And yeah, whether that's at or right down the street.
Are there any other finishing barrels in the works? Do you have any other barrels that you've acquired that things are sitting in that may or may not ever see the light of day that you may or may not be able to disclose?
There's one that I don't think is actually going to necessarily see the light of day. It was a cool idea. The pecan porter.
Mm-hmm.
They did a release where they finished their pecan porter, and I believe it was a Woodford Reserve cask.
Okay.
And then they kegged it, and then they're like, well, what the heck do we do with this?
Fair.
So we put some new make into it.
Okay.
Now it's a used barrel. I'm not sure how much of that pecan porter really is going to come out into it. It's going to take
or how long? I was going to say you're going to have to wait a long time to get a lot of flavor out of it. But it's still a fun experiment.
Yeah, sure. It's worth trying. We did 6 barrels of gin put into one of our old bourbon barrels.
Oh, cool.
Sounds good.
Barrel aged gin isn't, the new thing, but it's something that people are very interested in.
It might be in 3 years, though.
Right.
It might be, So let's try something and see how people like it, what people want. It's kind of interesting. I mean, when you look at how fast this industry is changing.
That's what I'm saying. Like putting down some barrels of gin just to put down some barrels of gin might not be a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a question from Zedman about bacon. So Sarah, what's your favorite bacon? I work in a deli and we sell streaky, shortcut, hickory smoked middle rashers. What's your go-to?
Oof. We normally
Thick
just
cut.
got
We
a
just
really
got a thick cut. Yeah.
and normally it's just a smoked bacon. Really, the thickness is what I care more about.
Yeah.
Um,
Cooks up better.
yeah.
That's what she said.
Yes, she did.
I just did.
She did right there. I was sitting right next to her.
I'm she. I say a lot of things. So
on the barrel, you said you use 3 different cooperages. What cooperages do you guys use? And then do you use 3 different kinds of barrels for every batch, or it's just kind of all just to whatever your taste you're going for that batch?
No, great question. When we started, the idea was we didn't want to find out in a year that we didn't like one of the flavor profiles of one of the flavors. When we started, we essentially didn't put all of our eggs into one basket.
That
So
makes
we
sense.
quickly identified what we like most, and so we've streamlined that. We're pretty consistent. Now we are using 53-gallon barrels from ISC, the Independent Stave Company.
Okay.
And we're going through their Missouri branch. All of our barrels come from Southern Missouri. We're using a char number 3.
Okay.
So instead of that more common char 4 that gives you that robust, smoky, classic kind of Kentucky bourbon style, ours is to actually kind of turn that down a little bit, kind of tone it back. So like I was mentioning earlier, how we're not trying to speed up the process. We're actually trying to slow it down. We're not trying to make a bourbon quickly to get it to market and take advantage of our weather in that way. Instead, we're looking at how can we get the most depth and complexity because we don't have as much time. You know,
Sure.
We'll see a 12-year Texas bourbon.
Yeah, they cannot.
Prove me wrong. I mean, I'd love to taste it. Maybe someday we will, you know.
They probably
We tasted a 10-year-old. We tasted a 10-year-old barrel at Herman Marshall.
yeah.
I tasted that barrel. It was pretty good.
It was pretty good.
Good. Good.
It was pretty good.
Yeah.
You know,
It was high proof too.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
so I mean,
Can't be
it's
done.
possible.
It's just yeah.
Yeah.
And who knows how much the angel stole from that barrel, you know, without actually pouring it out and seeing, because we'd get samples, we'd just get it straight from the barrel.
Mm-hmm.
But sitting in that Texas heat, yeah. 3D
So
engines.
I think, let's see here. I think we talked this earlier, but we can do it again. Eric wants to know the experience with different grains or different mash bills.
Yeah, great question. One we're really excited about that's coming out. I can't say exactly when, but it's probably not going to be this coming summer, but I think the summer after that. Where one of our distillers, our head distiller, John, has been, once he found out that we had red corn, well, he ordered some red corn. Once that was a thing that he found, like, oh, that grows in Texas, let's do that. He really wanted to do a red, white, and blue with 3 different bourbons, 1 red corn, 1 white corn, 1 blue corn.
I like
Ooh,
that.
That's an awesome idea.
Heck yeah.
So we'll do like 375s. We'll sell them as a 3-pack. We might sell them to distribution. I think that's part of the plan as well.
Cool.
He's even joked about having like 3 different colors of the saran wrap you use to wrap up the pallet, and it being red, white, and blue, just this big box coming into the warehouse. So we're trying things. In terms of, we've also got a bunch of Jimmy Red Corn at the tasting room right now. We've played with triticale, oak, wheat, rye, corn, 3 different types of corn. No, 4, no, 5. We've had Oaxacan green. We've had blue. We've had Jimmy Red, Bloody Butcher, white. Actually, now we've had some yellow dent. So yeah, that's 6 types of corn that we've had. We've played with both Elbon and Brasetto rye.
Nice. Those are
We've
good.
played with red winter wheat as well as Sonora white wheat.
Okay.
We've dabbled with the different barley. Barley's weird, y'all. You get the 2-row versus the 6-row versus the different types of kilns. We're getting weird. You know, we're trying stuff with barley too.
Yeah, sure.
We did get a little of that triticale.
What percentage of barley are you typically using?
Yeah, usually we're between 5 and 10%. It's usually 5 for our bourbon. That's our standard kind of bourbon mash bill for our rye. It's 5%. Some of those wheated bourbons that we laid down first, that had up to 7% barley. We made a few barrels of single malt
Mm.
So it kind of varies. Depends on what we get. Barley is expensive.
Oh, okay.
So pricey, fragile thing to work with.
So
I'd imagine.
I know I asked this earlier about the distribution and whatnot. What are your timelines for expanded beyond Texas? We've got somebody that is just north of the border in Oklahoma that likes whiskey too.
And then international wants to
And
know
then
too.
international, they would like to know what your plans are there.
Yeah, totally. So nationally and internationally, I'd say that there's parallels there, right? So for example, you can imagine how big the Chinese market is and how much they want American-made bourbon. They are soaking up as much of it as they can get. Japan is really interesting as well. And so you've got all of these companies. That's part of the reason why, for example, Blanton's is so tricky to find these days, is because at the time they sent a lot of it over to Japan, and it's getting drank for sure. But there's just not as much of it. When it was only in the States, it was a bit easier to find. And so as we're seeing all of these brands kind of make those decisions, then it's like, well, okay, do we go for England? Do we go for France? Do we go for Spain? Where do you go internationally? And you know, if you
And do you have enough to go for a big place like China or a big place like Japan? It's going to buy up as much of it as they possibly can.
Well, we got an Australian in the chat that wants it too. So,
absolutely.
and then Joseph says to send it to China in exchange for face masks and gloves.
On that note, we're actually making a whole
There you go.
sanitizer these days, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, we're going to get through this thing as well. Even outside of the COVID thing, if you've been living under a rock, things are kind of weird with international trade these days. So, you know, do you go for EU? Well, that would have been England, but now it's not. And, you know, like, do you go for?
Or is it?
Yeah, so there's a lot of factors to consider. You know, if we go hard for Honduras, you know, then we could maybe take over, you know, that market. The only one focusing on it, you know, that could be cool. Or the same concept goes to states. So, for example, there's a lot of purchasing power for whiskey in New York. That could be cool. It could be cool to get a bunch of people, a lot of people who buy a lot of whiskey in that market. But everyone's trying to get into New York, you know? So do you go for Kansas? Do you go for Oklahoma? And how do you figure out where you can maximize not only where it's going to get drank and purchased, but also where you can represent it?
So are you thinking it's going to be – I'm sorry to stop you. Are you thinking it's probably going to be more of a state-by-state opening up and kind of doing so that you do have representation to actually kind of push the markets in different areas?
I would say that there will be analytics involved and there will be careful studying, and that a lot of that's going to have to do with distribution. And so certain distributors will have certain connections, certain ends.
Y'all are currently with RNDC, right?
We're with Glaziers.
Oh, Glaziers. Okay. Yeah. So it's whether or not you're trusting them to push your product.
In which states that is, and, you know, is that what we want? And it's a constant, you know, thing we're always looking at.
So I haven't tasted it yet, but on the nose, number 3 or the third batch. Sorry, I move along with these things. You know, the third batch is a little closer to number 1 on the nose than number 2. Number 2 still stands out as a little bit more fruity than the third is to me. I'm getting more of the leather tones. I'm getting more of the cinnamon, more of the baking spices, rather than more of the apple and cherry.
And that one's orange, Matt? Orange on the label instead of red?
No, they're the same.
Is it red too?
But the back says 3 on it.
Gotcha.
It's written in somebody else's handwriting than yours. I could read that 3.
Right?
Yeah, as long as I'm not writing on the bottles, you're in good shape. Because you'll get some squiggly lines will make it be about what you can read.
For me, batch 2 and 3 smell more similar than they do to batch 1.
Yeah.
Chris Beaton says that Canada needs Adidas too.
Oh, poor Canada.
Ugh. Yeah, you know what? You send us your good whiskey, we'll send you ours. How about that? We'll make that trade. We'll make that trade.
Fair
For
deal.
real.
I think that's the only way we're making that deal work.
I'll send you blue Adidas if you send me green ones.
The third one seems to be a little more peppery too than the first two. I do like it though.
Yeah, it kind of does. It's right there with the second one as far as that. It's hotter than the first one overall.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But the finish on the second one seems to last longer than the third one or the first one as well.
Oh, I don't know. The finish is still ongoing with me on the third one.
Still going. So why point
I get
four?
that burn. Keep on going for the second one.
Yeah.
Over the third one.
The point 4 came from the idea of, hey, like, I don't know what temperature is best. When I say like pie, I say 3.14.
Yeah.
I'm not one who's just going to keep going. I know there's a 5 and a 7 after it, I think, but I don't.
Right.
It's not the right thing, right? Well, I could just say 3.1 or I could just say 3, but, so I don't know. I guess it just felt like the right thing to do. 50.2.
It's not a common number that you see. You see 100 all the time. You see 100 about 100.4 is just. It's another thing. I think it's a Texas thing too, though. It's just to be different because we're Texans and that's what we do.
Oh sure, yeah.
I think it's awesome. But it's also cool to get to that degree of specificity on a bottle too. Oh, thank you, Steve, for the
pie reference.
Pie. Hey, Dustin, how's it going?
I'm leaning towards the second batch that I like over all three. I like them all. They all have slightly different characteristics, and they're all very good.
But
I like that. I like they're all different. That's what I like about it. It's
there is a fingerprint on them. There is the fingerprint on them that makes them stick out, and you can tell that they are from the same distillery. But number 2 is where I'm leaning towards at this point, as far as just overall mouthfeel, the finish, all of it.
For me, I think on 2, now that I'm kind of letting it
got all 3 lined up.
Yeah, I'm getting a bit more. I think my go-to note for 2 has been butterscotch. But now I'm getting a bit more like praline.
Yeah, it's right on the cusp of those butterscotch candies, and yeah, I'm with you on that. I like the fruity nose, but I like how it's the fruit is there as well, but it's got kind of the nutty butterscotchy, and then the spice to it. Send your complaints to Canada not sharing good stuff.
Dr. Otto.
On
It's a
it.
good one.
On it.
I'm sure he'll care. I say, tell you what, we'll trade good Texas whiskey for some good Canadian whiskey. If not, well, then that's too bad. We'll keep our own.
Honorable Justin Trudeau.
I think that's hysterical.
Did you guys have to fight with Stillhouse over the name?
What an unfortunate series of events. Yeah, so we started around the same time, have very similar names. And I think regardless of what you think of Stillhouse, it comes in a can. Mm-hmm. And so I would introduce myself as Josh from Still Austin, and they'd say like, "Oh yeah, that's the can people."
No.
Like, no.
That's the one that's in like the motor oil can. Is that what they are?
Yep.
Yeah, not even close.
No.
And so yeah, it's kind of an unfortunate coincidence of timing that we came out at within the same quarter of each other, like just the same time. Very, very different products,
to say the least.
Well, I mean, just a display.
Hey, you don't have mint chocolate chip bourbon or whiskey, whatever the hell it is. Lovely flavors. See, 3 smells really oily compared to 2, where it's all fruity and 3's got this really nice oil sheens note on it.
So that's a good observation. So one of the things that we've been doing is, realize that when you're adjusting things on a still, I'm trying to make it sound as simple as possible, but talking about kind of thermodynamics and chemical engineering a bit. One of our
Hey, you
goals.
can go into it. We're all for it. So
Okay, we've been trying to lower the proof that it comes off the still over time. So I believe the first one, we were pulling it off this still at usually between 145 and 155, kind of depending. And so it was coming off a bit more. I find one to be a bit more astringent.
Okay.
Not necessarily hotter, but the thing is that if it's a higher alcohol content when it comes off the still, that means even if they all go into the barrel at the same proof, you have to add more water
Right.
to get it down, right?
Right.
Whereas if it comes off at a lower proof, instead of adding more water, it's got more of those tails. So it's got more of those oils, more of those esters, more of those kind of heavier compounds.
So could that be why a lot of the bottom shelf all have that really astringent taste to it? Is because maybe they're pulling it off the still at super high proof?
So I think the best example is when you think of vodka, you'll see it says like triple distilled or Irish whiskey, you know, it's triple distilled. The idea behind that is to cut as many of those heads and tails out as possible. So your bottom shelf, and again, I'm not trying to stereotype. There's some stuff on the bottom I like. There's some stuff on the top I don't, you know. But
same. And I'm not trying to shame or anything.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
Get
figure out
around
flavors that are typically coming out of some of the cheaper bottom shelf things. Again, there are some that are doing the right thing and just not charging a lot for their product. I'm with you.
But yes, in general, so I actually got into a pleasant argument with a doctor one time.
Pleasant.
Who was saying that he recommends potato-based vodka for his patients because there's less gluten.
Oh, God.
And I said, no, doc, the gluten doesn't evaporate. It's because potatoes cost a lot more than other sorts of ingredients. So if you're going to start with a more expensive base input, you might as well make a more conservative cut so you have fewer of those heads. You don't want any methanol in there. If you're making the cheapest mass-produced neutral spirit you can get, you're willing to accept more of those high alcohol content heads compounds that will give you that shitty headache.
Yeah.
So yeah, in a way, yeah, definitely. Tails are not as harmful, but they're not perfect either. They do kind of crud you up a bit. They're kind of like oils. And so they'll just get into your body. And so you don't necessarily want tons and tons of tails unless you're making a really kind of thick whiskey.
Viscous, oily. You're going for that.
A lot of those Islas that you like
Are oily.
Yeah, and that's
Oily,
I think that's why I like 3 because it's got like this brown sugar, oily, a little bit of kerosene smokiness to it that I really like in 3. That's really nice.
Yeah, I'm assuming non-chill filtration.
Yeah, we don't believe in that.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we don't have one of those at our distillery now. We don't have one of those.
No.
We got a paper filter. Yeah.
A paper filter.
Keep the
Yeah,
char
to
out.
make
That's
sure
about
that you're
it.
not going to have any of the char.
Yeah.
Pour through.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's just a coffee filter.
Yeah, but it's essentially just a coffee filter. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, Matt, I think I'm actually with you. I think the third one is my favorite. I get why Sarah likes the second one.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's much
They're
more fruity.
all very good.
They're really good.
They all have that same fingerprint, which is really nice. They all feel like the same distillery put them out, even though they are.
It's definitely got
different.
a stamp. It's got a stamp that it's your distillery, and it's got a Texas stamp as well.
With that heat.
With that heat that comes from it, even being at 104, and it's not like high proof that you usually get that heat and that hotness from. That's just Texas. I mean,
think about how we drink here. I mean, you three have a whiskey commentary channel. Like you guys taste some high proof stuff, right? If I give you 105, you're not exactly going to blink at me and say, no, I can't handle this, right? But we in Austin spend a lot of time at brunch and outside and on patios and hanging out. And I drink whiskey 12 months out of the year.
same.
But I'm going to drink it on the rocks a lot. I'm going to drink it with soda sometimes. Like I'm going to put ice into it sometimes, because I just like stuff cold. I always keep a bottle of clean water around so that I can adjust the proof over time. If I'm at the pool, I'm not drinking whiskey neat. You know, I switch to beer sometimes. I switch to even the occasional White Claw.
I'm not ashamed to say that it can be 110 degrees outside and I'm drinking my whiskey neat, but I'm drinking my water ice cold alongside with it. Not in it, just with it.
I really appreciate that because when it's bottled, I mean, from a production perspective, it's folks putting their heart and they're bearing their soul to kind of like what they've made. And so they're proud of it and they're giving it to you at the proof that they felt it really kind of told its story most, you know?
I like
well. I mean, we can. I mean, I actually would like to kind of get into that because you are releasing all of these at the same proof. Is this the proof that the whiskey tells its story best, or is this the proof you guys just kind of decided on? Because with 3 different batches, a consumer would think, you know, they might have been a little bit more flavorful at a different proof, but we just went to this one because that's what we were releasing it at.
So part of it is that we wanted the consumer to be able to make the choice for themselves.
They can go down if they want to.
Yeah.
If it's like if you order a steak and you're not sure whether medium rare or medium is the right one for you, well, let's do medium rare because I can always throw that back on. A few more minutes and give you medium, you know? But don't start with medium well because there's no coming back from that, you know?
Right.
Steak is run.
Right? So we wanted somebody we want the nerds to be able to enjoy it at higher proof with its robustness. But we know that a lot of people in the public are going to drink it on the rocks or with soda or something like that. And so we do want it to taste watered down.
I think this will hold up to a large cube just fine.
Yeah, there's a lot of whiskeys I like, neat, but if I put them on the rocks, it's watered down within a moment. And I don't I feel like
most Irish, I mean, you're talking about the triple distilled, you're taking out so much of the flavor that as soon as it chills down to a certain temperature, your tongue can't taste anything that's really left.
A lot of Irishes are lower proof though, too.
And at 40%.
So,
yeah, you're not wrong.
You know, they put out the cask strength, they put out that stuff, but it's more often than not, you have your 40 proof that people are reaching for the Irish.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that's
number 3, again, with all the oils that we were talking about, the third release would probably really stand up to, well, you have your own right there, but I have these right here as well that have already been poured.
2. I'll pour my own.
Are you folks familiar with the concept of élevage?
Yep.
It's slow water reduction in the barrel. So what that means is that it's a case-by-case adjustment with each barrel. And so some, you know, whether it's a sweeter note or a spicier note or a smokier note, we're adjusting them to try to maximize the way that those flavors will marry together and create the best batch-to-batch final product, you know. But that means that some of those barrels we're dumping at around 103 proof. So by that slow water reduction, some of these barrels at their finished product, cask strength is a weird word to use if you're serving something at 103 proof.
Right.
If that's factual, you know.
Well, I mean, people see cask strength and they're thinking in the 120s and above, but that's not necessarily the case because your cask strength is your cask strength. I mean,
well, and again, what happened to this specific barrel? Did water evaporate or did alcohol evaporate? Was it stored in a really cool and humid part of the warehouse? And, you know, all of a sudden you were getting just weird evaporation or, you know, what did you put it in at? Were you trying to get out sweeter notes? So you put it in at a lower proof, you know, things like that. So, yeah, cask strength is very, you know, ambiguous almost. It's kind of.
Yeah, because your cask strength is completely different than the distillery down the street's cask strength. So, you know.
Well, and then you have other terms like full proof.
Barrel proof.
You know, that some distillers use saying, you know, well, we put this in at this proof, so this is what we're going to display it at.
Yeah, they'll bring it back down to whatever proof they put it in at.
Right.
So, yeah. I don't know. I like it. I think it would hold up well to ice in the summer. I think it would hold up well in a cocktail. Yeah, as a matter of cocktails last night with the on ladies' night, and this would go good with some of that ginger liqueur.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because you guys make a lot of cocktails that you got at the tasting room, right?
Oh, totally. I mean, we're in the middle of not only a whiskey renaissance, but as well a cocktail. Right?
So what kind of cocktails do you guys make that you really like down at the tasting room?
What we want to do is a lot of our cocktails are things that we want people to be able to replicate at home.
Okay.
Things like an old fashioned. Well, if you come have our old fashioned, we want it to be the best damn old fashioned you've ever had. We want you to watch us how we make it. When we first opened, there were about, I think, 8 of us bartenders. I was one of the first bartenders there, and we all had completely different backgrounds. We'd all made lots of old fashions, but we'd all made them different ways. And so the first bar manager just made us each make one the way we thought it should be made. And then we tasted each other's, and then we all kind of like crowdsourced it. And so at the end of the day, it's not about my ego. It's about whoever makes the best old fashioned.
Whichever one tastes good.
Exactly. And so
Right.
we've been not crowdsourcing, but working together as a community to try to make the best that we can. We've got a great team in the tasting room. I love them all very much. They've got a lot of skills. They've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of training. The old fashioned is probably the most popular. One of the most popular is one of our first cocktails, where what we did is our new make. When we first opened, we didn't have aged product. So all we had was new make. And so one of the things we did is we infused it with strawberries and thyme in a big jar. And then we served it with homemade lemon.
Oh, that sounds cool.
After a while, we ended up putting that in the frozen margarita machine.
Ooh.
That's
Nice.
awesome.
And that's pretty much a crowd pleaser.
That's a potent
I
margarita.
imagine
Yeah.
so.
That'd be nice and tasty in the hot of summer.
we
I
make
just
people
poured a little
very
bit.
happy.
I just
Probably
poured
very
a little-
drunk too.
I just poured a little bit of the new make, just to kind of give it a smell and a taste.
Sure, yeah.
Are you selling the new make, or is this just something that we got a hold of?
It's something you've got. It's something that is definitely part of our story, and that's where we started. But at the end of the day, we realize whiskey for most people is brown. That's what we set out to do when we started. And so we still have new make. It is for sale. It's not on shelves. I doubt you'll find it at most liquor stores, so it's mostly been pulled off, kind of discontinued. But we've still got some. If you come to the tasting room, we can get you some.
Very cool. So, how do you guys make your old fashioned at the bar? Just to wonder, since people could replicate it at home, can you give away the recipe to say what you guys do so people could make it at home if they got a hold of the bottle?
Yeah, sure. We do a turbinado sugar cube, which is those little brown sugar cubes. Not the brown sugar, but like the sugar in the raw.
Yep.
Sugar cube.
Oh,
Now, the thing is those cubes are really hard. So if you try to muddle that directly, it's fighting it, and you'll kind of jab down and it'll slide around in the glass. So what you need to do is you need to put the dash of bitters. We do 2.5 to 3 dashes of bitters, depending on how long the bitters dashes are, onto the cube.
And then metal. Yeah.
Now what that does is the cube soaks it up, and so yeah, absolutely. So once you muddle it, it breaks up. It's kind of soft. Then we will pour the whiskey in, and then give it a quick stir. So that sugar and bitter will infuse in with the whiskey.
Okay.
Then we will add the ice cube. We do a big rock. We'll stir it to cool it and to dilute it just a little bit. Then we will put a peel of orange. So not a whole wedge, but just the outer skin. Express the orange by rubbing it around the lip of the glass. And then we have this really fancy thing that we're really happy with. It looks like, those little stamps. I'm thinking of like if you ever sent a letter, but you had to do a wax seal.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's you put into the wax. We have one that's made out of copper. So it's at room temperature. And if you set it on an ice cube, the copper is room temperature. The ice is not. And it will burn the ice. So we put our logo
Onto that.
melted into
That's
the
awesome.
ice.
That's really cool.
That's funny.
We put the Luxardo cherry, the black cherry you're familiar with, on a stick. So it's easy to get. So you're not tonguing it out later. You can just pull it out whenever you're in for it. And it's perfect old fashioned.
Yeah, and the copper works really well as that conductive, so that when you put it on there, it actually melts it really quickly. Without you having, I mean, basically your hand is warming it up enough to give it a nice little imprint. That's fun.
You actually don't even have to press down on it.
I bet not.
Just the weight of the gravity pulling it down will just like stamp it.
That's awesome. So, where did you find one of these machines? You guys know about it? Something you guys researched, or somebody came upon it? Or how'd you get one of these stamper machines?
Shout out to Fat Ice.
Okay.
They're a company in Austin. I'd say that the art of dilution is the art of bartending. The difference between a martini and a big shot of vodka is how you handle that dilution artfully. And so as we are all trying to figure out how do you make the best whiskey, well, that means how do you malt the best? How do you grow the best grain? Who makes the best barrels? That concept is
what's the right parallel?
So who makes the best ice? How do you get quality ice?
Makes sense.
If it's one of those ingredients.
Sorry, real quick. The nose versus the palate on this new make is insane. It smells very, very aggressive. It smells like it's 109 proof, right? Like it smells huge. And I look at it and it's 46% ABV, or at least that's what Matt wrote. I think that's what Matt wrote.
Mm-hmm.
But then you taste it and it is round and buttery, and it's very clean.
Yeah.
I enjoy the heck out of this.
Yeah, I like it too. It's good.
The nose not as much, but the palate is
the nose is
phenomenal.
like is quite deceiving.
Uh-huh.
And then you take your sip and finish it. Thanks.
I can pour a little bit more.
I don't want another sip or anything.
I can pour a little bit more.
One of the other things we've done in our tasting room, and this is kind of a little really nerdy, is that you may know that at a tasting room in Texas, you can't serve any outside alcohol.
Right.
So it's one thing, we can make you a gin and tonic, we can make you an old fashioned, because there's only one alcohol, and that's the one that we make, right? But what about a Negroni?
Yeah, that's gonna be a little hard. So you're gonna make some Campari of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
So you all are having to make your own bitters, I'm assuming, as well.
Right now, and it depends on who you ask. There will be some kind of different readings of the rules, and it's one of those we're not anyone.
You are bottling your own bitters.
We have a bunch of bitters in bottles. We are not selling it or using it primarily. The thing is that bitters you can buy at HEB because they're considered non-potable.
Okay.
I've drank a lot of Underbergs, and I've got all kinds of Italian bitters around. I like bitters, but right now where we're at is that even though Angostura bitters are very high alcohol content, they're considered undrinkable. And so a 19-year-old can buy a bottle of bitters at HEB. Don't get any ideas from me, because
I didn't
get drunk off
that.
It sounds like
that would be nasty. You would get so sick, I think.
Yeah, you need to have a Josh
bitters
before you try to do that. You need to kind of have handles. Yeah, but you can. So right now we're at a spot where we think bitters are okay. But we recently, on a very small scale, figured out how to make our own vermouth.
Push it again.
How to make our own Italian red bitter, and how to make our own absinthe.
Very cool.
Nice.
That's awesome. Wow.
Okay.
That's so. Do they all come off the still in some sort, or is it just adding botanicals, or how does that stuff work to make those kind of things?
Yeah, we're actually redistilling some of our new make and getting it to a higher proof.
Okay.
And then we're stripping the alcohol out of other types of alcohol, so that we're not serving any outside alcohol. We're replacing it with our own alcohol.
Okay.
And that's all the alcohol in the liqueur is just us.
Makes sense. Well, I guess speaking of other bitters and botanicals, you want to move on to your gin?
Sure.
Let's talk about some gin, because I do like a good gin, and I know this is good gin. So what kind of botanicals in there, and I guess how many times it's distilled and all those good fun facts?
Yeah. So this is distilled twice.
Okay.
I'd say that the when we were looking at making a gin, one of the first thoughts that crossed our mind was that you start by making vodka. You start by making a neutral spirit.
Okay.
And it felt like the wrong thing to do because we're so proud of the quality of our grain.
Right.
About our farmers. Why would we just strip all the flavor out of this high quality grain to make that?
Sure.
So instead we looked at where gin came from. And gin evolved out of something called Genever.
Mm-hmm.
This is a Belgian Dutch style.
Good stuff.
And Genever starts with a lower proof base. It's usually malt or rye, sometimes malt and rye. But it's typically a rye base. And we thought, oh, hey, we've got this rye that we're really proud of. Let's do a rye whiskey as the base for the gin.
Ah, that's cool. So this is all rye based?
This is 60% rye and 40% corn.
Really? That's awesome.
So we made a new make, a rye whiskey, on our big column still. And then in our 100-gallon pot still, we put the whiskey and all of our botanicals.
Ah, okay.
So we wanted to get away from the London Dry style of gin. London Dry is what I grew up with, and there's nothing wrong if you like it. It's that kind of classic OG kind of gin.
Sure.
And it's very juniper forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
And so our thought was, hey, let's like play a little bit. You know, gin is kind of like painting. You know, if making whiskey is barbecue, where it takes practice, I think gin is kind of painting, where you can just whip something up and try something and see how you like it.
That's pretty tasty.
That's good. All right. So what botanicals are in here?
Yeah, we've got juniper, coriander, angelica, orris. We've got 3 types of citrus peels. We've got orange, grapefruit, and lemon peels. We've got elderflower, tarragon, Jamaican allspice, 2 types of cinnamon. We have both the Burramundi and the Verum. And I can't tell if I'm missing one, but I think that's 12.
That's
If
awesome.
not, I'm impressed anyway.
Thanks. Yeah, I've been under a rock for the last month, so I haven't actually had to.
You're here.
You know, and yet you just pulled them right on out like
That's right.
they're with you.
So how many experiments did you guys go through to get the right blend of botanicals? I mean, when you stick it in the gin, I mean, let's be forever, over and over and over experimentation, I would think, in order to get to the right style that you have here.
Oh, totally. And then, I mean, so we all want to agree, right? We want it to be something that we all believe in, right?
Really good.
But we all have different palates, each of the 4 of us. And everyone,
Sure.
We all like different things, right?
Right.
Absolutely.
So is it us as beverage geeks? Is it my little sister? Is it my dad? You know, like whose palate are you targeting
Sure.
making something when you have the ability to control it? So whereas when you're aging whiskey, it's kind of like, well, it is what it is. You know, you want to celebrate that. With gin, it's kind of like, well, do you want to? We could buy anise seed. We could buy anything. We can make it taste kind of however we want. So what do we want it to taste like? You know. So I know that doesn't fully answer it, but I'd say that there was heated. There was a lot of healthy debate. You know, whether people like it sweeter, more floral, more dry, less citrus, more peppery. I think the rye whiskey component really shines out. That's that kind of green pepper, white peppercorn, green. I'm thinking like chive a little bit. That kind of rye characteristic mix. And so complementing it with things like elderflower and tarragon, but also in a separate way, complementing the spice of rye with things like Jamaican allspice and cinnamon.
It smells so nice.
Well, and it's ridiculously floral, both on the nose and on the palate. It tastes like I have run through a field of flowers, and I've tripped and fallen and eaten, just a ton of flowers. And just purple flowers and white flowers, just kind of on my tongue. I find it to be very delicious, and it is sweeter on the palate than I was expecting it to be
based off the
on
nose. Yeah, I think I get more on the palate than I do on the nose. Now the nose, it is a very strong floral nose, but I get more on the palate than I do on the nose.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, this would make amazing cocktails for sure, and it's really nice by itself too. I'm not opposed to it the way it is.
On a big
like it a
cube,
lot.
I feel like this would be a really refreshing summer drink as well.
For sure. Had a little,
My drink of the quarantine has been making a perfect Manhattan.
nice.
This instead.
Yeah, with gin Manhattan.
Really
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Perfect, right? You're adding equal parts sweet and dry vermouth.
Right.
Mhm.
So gin and dry vermouth martini, but rye and sweet vermouth Manhattan.
Ooh.
So the idea of a rye gin begs the question of, well, what would a perfect, what is that? I don't know what it is, but I really like it. You get kind of the rich mahogany notes of a Manhattan, but you also get the liveliness and the spryness of a gin martini.
Yeah.
So
That's really good. I think this with a little bit of cream de violet would be amazing.
totally.
Do you guys ever carry that down there or anything like? Have you tried that ever?
I've had an aviation with it before.
Okay.
There's a little creme de violet. That's on the list of things we should try to make ourselves, but there's a
Yeah,
lot
for
going
sure.
on with this.
I was like, you have to make a lot of things from the sounds of it, so
Yeah.
the list can only be so long. You can only make so much.
I was thinking this with a little bit of Domaine Decant and a little bit of that ginger might be really fun too.
Totally. We're actually doing some product development. Well, not product development, but more of a class experience that we're trying to figure out the final details on. But it's a blend your own gin class.
Ooh, that sounds like fun.
Very nice. Yeah.
So the idea of separating out each of these different flavors into, hey, here's an orange gin and a
That's
juniper gin, and then figure out how do you blend it. You can imagine there's some laws involved. So we're working on it.
Sign me up for that. That sounds like fun.
Have you actually distilled an orange forward gin so that you will have a little sample of that so that people kind of see what kind of blend they're going to want to create?
Yeah, totally. So right now they're in the mason jar scale.
Yeah.
But I had each of the botanicals from our gin in a separate one where it's just the rye whiskey base distilled with coriander, distilled with lemon. And so you can really get the difference in a spirits perspective because the difference in how a lemon and a grapefruit look and smell. But once they're distilled, some of those oils are different.
They react completely different because of the high temperature, because of, it's a different beast altogether, what congeners came off and got created.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. So we want to make that an interactive experience to kind of show people how it works.
Yeah, so Donald wants to know what kind of citrus peels do they use, and have you guys considered Seville orange or Rangpur lime? If I pronounced that right, I have no idea.
Yeah, great question. So this gin has lemon, orange, and grapefruit peels in it. However, to your thinking there, when we just had New Make, one of the infusions that we made is called the Daydreamer, where we realized a lot of people don't drink whiskey on the rocks except for Sarah by the pool. And so what we wanted to do is kind of what would brunch in a whiskey look like? And so the concept was we took New Make and we infused it with 3 types of citrus peels. Now for that one, because it was citrus peel focused, and that was really kind of the huge part of the story, we wanted to get away from common
Makes sense.
citrus peels. And so we did Valencia, Bergamot, and Tangelo. So we did some, which those aren't everywhere. Bergamot's the famous one from Earl Grey. Tangelo grows pretty well down in the valley. And Valencia is kind of like a lemony grapefruit. But yeah, we want to play with different citrus peels. Right now for the blend your own gin, I've got, I think, another 20 different bags with different kinds of gins. We're going to play with horny goat weed, and we're going to play with
Horny goat reed.
lime and ginger and gentian and angelica and everything. So yeah, we're trying stuff. Right now, we're at the point where we might make a different gin and have kind of 2 gins on the market, but we're really proud of this. We're one of the only rye-based gins in the United States and one of the first. And we actually won a good food award for it. So we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's really good.
Yeah, does anybody? So are you guys the first ones to use a rye-based gin in the country? Do you know, or is there a few other people that use it as well?
I don't know who would definitely get like the first. If I were to guess, I'm going to go with St. George.
Okay, up in California, yeah.
So they've got a rye gin.
No, it's okay.
And yeah, the term Genever is protected. It's like a DO. Genever has to be from Belgium, the Netherlands, or there's 2 provinces. And yeah,
I like this gin quite a bit.
Interesting. Very cool.
As somebody that hasn't really explored a lot of gins, I just kind of pulled out Iron Roots gin. We had them on, and so we have a sample of their gin as well.
Completely different beasts.
And they're completely different beasts altogether.
Yep.
But I actually enjoy yours a little bit more. It's
more floral.
A lot more floral, and there's more going on. I feel there's more complexity to it. Yeah. So yeah. With the limited gin experience I have more than just that. But I feel like this is a really, really wonderful product. If it's scalable, you might want to think about it. It's really lovely.
Thank you. Yeah, this is available all across the state, and we're really pleased with it.
Now, when you guys go with your whiskey countrywide, you take the gin countrywide as well, or just the whiskey for the time being?
It'll be gin as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, great. Then we'll get both. Perfect. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's quite tasty.
I mean, just based off of Sarah's live yesterday, where they had Cocktail Quintessa on, and just all of the different cocktails that they were creating. I'm just imagining so much fun thing I could do with this gin.
Yeah. I told him, I was like, I kind of want to grab the ginger liqueur and the orange liqueur and add a little bit and kind of mess around a little bit with it, but I'll do that on my own time.
Yeah, that's what you want to do. Is you want to provide something that's distinct, it's different and unique. You know, if you are behind a bar and you've got 10 different types of citrus juice, well, you can do a lot of different kind of combinations there. If you've just got lime and lemon, well, that's what you got. So when it comes to behind the bar with spirits, you want more than just one gin, one style. You know, so we want to kind of see, hey, what works for you? What can you get the most out of?
All right. Well, you want to move on to the coffee liqueur then?
I don't think
Delevante. Is that how you pronounce that? Is that correct?
Delevante?
Yeah.
What is it, Matt? Because I don't remember.
It's in there. There's 2 of them in there.
Are you holding out at me?
Oh,
here it is.
Okay, so this is kind of a fun story. Like I said, when we started, we did a bunch of different experiments. We tried a bunch of things. And one of the things we did is we filled 2 barrels of corn whiskey. It was 100% corn. We gave it some time. It was a little over a year. And then it was done. And then we're like, oh, crap. Well, what do we do with it? You know, do you sell a corn whiskey? Do you put a corn whiskey out on the market? And our master distiller, the guy who designed our still and helped us get all of our operations set up, is this guy named Mike Delevante. And he said that back in the early 90s, he used to be the master distiller at Appleton Rum in Jamaica.
Oh, very cool.
And then he left and took over as the master distiller not master distiller, but the head of the logistics for the Campari Group for the North American division. So he's seeing all of the Campari Group's distillations.
Wow.
Which is a big project, right? That's a big job. So he mentioned, hey, back in the 90s, back when I was at Appleton, he did a collaboration with the Marleys.
Ooh, that's good.
Like Bob Marley, like that family. They have a coffee roasting business. So he had this barrel-aged Appleton rum. They had coffee, and they did a coffee liqueur. And he said, guys, if you got this corn whiskey and you don't know what to do with it, I'll bet it will kind of act like barrel-aged rum, kind of a bit more sugar presence. I still have the recipe. Do you guys want it? And so we took it and said, okay, well, let's try this thing. So we went down the street. Our neighbors are a coffee roaster. They're the spokesman, and they roast coffee. And so we said, hey, do you guys want to take a stab at the coffee roast? So we did our barrel-aged corn whiskey with their coffee. And when we were trying to come up with a name for it, we realized that Mike, who's been distilling for 50 years, has never had his name on a bottle.
Oh, come on now.
Right?
So we called it the Delevante.
No better time than now, right?
That's right.
Named it after him, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Ooh.
It smells good.
And it's delicious.
It smells like I'm putting this in my coffee in the morning.
It is by my coffee pot, and it does not leave.
Tomorrow morning, next.
Awesome.
I hope
Now,
we're
is this only available at the distillery, or can you buy this on the market as well?
This is only available at the distillery. And by the way, guys, you guys have some of the last of it.
Yay.
Right now, there are 4 bottles
Good.
left for sale at the tasting room.
Well, I guess when this thing opens back up, special people should rush and get one, otherwise I guess you're out of luck.
And we can still do bottles to go. So we can't do
Oh, you
tastings,
can then I guess I'll get it
but
now.
we're still open for bottles to
Josh, she's calling Adidas on one of those
Adidas.
bottles, I think.
go.
This is good. Like, this is dangerous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah,
put
and
it-
it's still at 50 proof, so it's not low
right.
for the pour. It's delicious.
Ooh.
That's, yeah. We'll just drink
Ooh.
this over some ice.
Oh
Like
my.
Cold brew.
Is there sweetener added to this? This is very sweet.
Yeah, it's got some vanilla. It's got
Okay.
a little bit of chocolate. Yeah, some sugar.
And that's my sweetener for my coffee in the morning.
Yeah.
For real.
Like I said, it's based off of a coffee liqueur from the 90s, so it has that kind of Kahlua kind of world, like where it's like, hey, it's not dark creme de cacao, it's like it's got some sweetness to it.
Make a Colorado Bulldog with that.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
That used to be my drink of choice way back in the day. Dangerous.
So what do you guys make at the distillery with this usually?
We've done a bunch of different things. We've done takes on like a Black Russian.
Ooh, nice.
We like vodka and Kahlua. So we used the new make, which
Mm.
has that kind of sweet, nutty kind of component to it with this. And so it's higher proof. At the tasting room, we're not allowed to use dairy. So we don't do the White Russian. But we did it with cold brew for a while. We've done things with orange bitters and takes on Manhattans and used it in different ways out of the tasting room.
Did you say not allowed to use dairy?
Yeah, so you have to get like essentially food handlers permitting.
Yeah.
So we're not licensed at that to use eggs and dairy.
And stuff like that. That makes sense.
That's insanity. So like that's the stepping point of whether or not you have to have the food handlers on top of the bar certification.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then it goes into now. Everyone still has to have food handlers because you're touching citrus, but you have to like license your establishment to serve more. It's kind of like if you want to do sushi, you can't just do sushi out of a truck. Like you have to like kind of get another certification. to do
Right.
Yeah, so it's not just the individual people that has to get certified. The whole distillery has to get a special.
It's the venue has to get a different permit.
This is really good.
Thanks.
I like coffee though. I drink water, I drink whiskey, I drink coffee. That's like life.
Me
So
too.
it's a good life.
It's not a bad life to live.
Always makes me happy. It's dessert, y'all.
Mhm.
Oh, totally.
I'm half inclined to pour one of these batches in there to see how that goes.
Delicious,
See?
I'm sure.
Blender.
Good. Yeah. Blend your whiskey. Play with it.
At all times, I'm always mixing things. I mixed all my cocktails last night at the end. It was interesting.
Cool.
I bet it was interesting.
It was actually really good. It tasted like tropical fruit salad with some whiskey.
But she also had 4 cocktails.
with an ounce and a half to 2 ounce in each cocktail.
Did she drink all of the cocktails?
I got more buzz last night in 2 hours than I did on Saturday in 7. So
Yeah, it's all those sugars.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Well, and she also went through about the same amount of liquor in 2 hours instead of spaced out in 7. So
And they were all 100 proof or higher.
yeah.
One had some Stout Junior. Yeah, that'll do it.
I mix a lot, y'all.
I do too. I'm a blender. Like that's what I'm constantly taking my whiskeys and putting them together and making new things and trying new concoctions and because why not?
Yeah, that's what it's for. It's something to use. And at the same time, look, I always believe in respecting the distillers, the producers, the bottlers' intent with what goes into it, you know?
I do too.
But yeah, I love Bookers a lot.
Yes.
If I'm drinking it neat, I'm in a bad mood. Like, give me space, right? Because I'm like fuming over there, like having something with heat, you know? But if I'm drinking it on the rocks, like I'm unwinding, you know? And I don't know. I'm very mood driven. I don't believe in just drinking one thing for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I'm mood driven based on my proof. Like some nights I go straight for that high proof. And then there's other nights that I work my way up. And then there's nights that I need to have the happy median and I'm just going to stay there.
Yeah.
Kind of depends on how fast I want to fall asleep and how bad my day was at work. Okay, so I actually put what was rest of all 3 of my batches into what was left of my coffee liqueur, and it's really good.
It is.
It's really good. It still has that coffee kick.
But I like it because it tamped down some of the sweetness
for him.
The added sugar to me is to me it's just a turnoff. The corn whiskey was probably already so sweet.
He's not a big sweet in general anyway. So, but this, yeah,
I love it. I think it's awesome.
I like it a lot.
I'll drink all of it. Yeah,
I'm a big fan.
I'll drink all of his. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like Spencer said, bring your own dairy in a flask. I think is how you to make your own White Russians at that point.
Yep.
I don't think we got to be too pleased with this plan. Take
some half and half.
Do it at home.
Yep. Yeah, that's good.
So we got a couple more minutes. What kind of blends do you make at home? You said you were an Isla guy. What kind of things do you play around with? And actually, I'll start it off by giving you my go-to. It's a base of Teachers, which is a blended Scotch, a little on the peaty side. It says high in peated malt, but they're lying. It's peated. With some Old Grandad 114 to kind of boost up the proof and boost up the intensity a little bit, and Schledag, which is a Total Wine exclusive. They make an Isla and I put a touch of that in to kind of bring out more of that peat note. And that's my go-to kind of blend right now. That's my favorite that I've found.
Okay. You're not going to like this answer.
Okay.
There's something a friend came up with. There's a spirit I'm sure you've heard of. It's a Swedish liqueur. It's called Malort.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Malort is the special whiskey give to new people when they come here for the first time. It's part of the initiation. Is when you get here for the first time, they give you this new special whiskey you have to try.
I still have yet to take a drink of that.
I got tricked into it twice.
No, you got tricked into it once. You were stupid the second time. No offense, nothing. No.
Sorry.
I mean,
you were talking about the wonderfulness that is Malort's.
Yeah, the superior product.
Yes, obviously.
Called Malort from Chicago. Yeah. Of that category. No, but a friend realized that if you mix it 50-50 with Cynar.
What's that?
Cynar is an artichoke-based Italian bitter.
Okay.
Cynar. If you ever had like Fernet.
Yes, I have Fernet. Okay.
Fernet, I like I'm oversimplifying this, but when you think of Jaeger, I think Jaeger is the only like real black liqueur we had growing up. But like Jaeger is really sweet and minty.
Right.
It gives you a bad headache the next day. It's got all that sugar. So if you take some of that sugar out and just embrace the bitter, which I built a palate for after the IPA revolution of 2009 to 12 and all that crazy like IBU and all that kind of crazy bitter stuff people were into.
Yeah.
Fernet is great. I had a shot of Fernet before we started this podcast. So Cynar is similar. It's just instead of being quite so bitter, it's got a kind of rounder, more vegetal note to it. But it's still kind of thick. And so when we 50-50'd that with Malort, the thickness of the Cynar was turned down a little bit, so it wasn't quite as robust. And the bitterness of the Malort was like not increased, it was kind of toned down. So you still got some of the flavor, but you got only the good flavors.
The bitter was put in the background.
Right, so the Cynar kind of replaced it, and so they each kind of complemented each other.
Cancel each other out.
So your blending plan is what can I do to fix Malorts?
I mean, when you've got it, right? You don't just keep drinking it like you.
I have only smelt it, and only thing that I can smell on it is lemon pledge.
From a structure perspective, the dominant obvious one is that it has a bunch of gentian root in it. And gentian is one of the most bitter things you can get. I think, I can't be quoted on this because the recipe for Campari is super secret, but I believe it's gentian is kind of the bitter component to it. So if you like Campari, if you start to like some of the bitter things, then you can kind of get past that. I was talking to somebody because I'm also interested and involved with agave spirits and mezcal and things like that. And so somebody pointed out that they can't taste the smoke anymore. And that might be how like you can't taste the proof anymore. Like you can taste it, but it doesn't give you that burn that you remember, you know?
I don't know, because I've gotten to the point where I literally have to hand the glass to my wife and say, does this have peat in it? Because if it's lightly peated, I can't even taste the peat anymore, like to say that, okay, that's definitely a peated thing. And she can every single time.
I'm not a peat fan, so
if it's 2 ppm, she's going to pick it up every single time. But I feel like I've acclimated so much to it now that I don't pick it up when it's 12 to 15 ppm.
If you don't drink peat for a while, you'll get it back. Or if you just don't drink for like a week, you'll get it back too.
But
that's what I found to be the case.
But why?
You just do. The palate resets.
No, I mean, but why?
Why? Sometimes it's a good idea to do it.
I know, Matt. I'm just having fun.
It's hard to do when you record on Sunday and then live on Monday, and then you can't get a full weekend.
You can get close enough.
Close enough.
You can get close.
That's fair.
No, days go by for me that I don't drink sometimes. So, but I'm not a fan of peat, so I can pick it out of anything. And he says 2 ppm. I mean, 0.2 I can pick out. It's just something that my nose is like, and it knows what it is. All different sorts of peat, not just Isla.
No, because Irish peat and
yeah.
I know. Obviously, some class got canceled for May. We were hoping to come visit Still Austin when we came down in May. Our class got moved to August, but we'll definitely be stopping by when we're down there in Austin again for sure, because I want to come check out all these wild things you got going on. Sounds amazing.
Yeah, we'll show you guys a good time. We've got a really cool space. The idea we have is that, I had a tour one time. It was kind of the craziest tour I ever did.
Okay.
It was a bachelorette party.
Ooh.
Most crazy stories start with a bachelorette party.
With a group of petroleum engineers from ExxonMobil.
Oh, this should be interesting.
They were each group driving each other nuts. At the end, one of the bachelorettes was like, "Wait, but why is this clear?" And you could tell, like, the engineer was just annoyed, like in a big whiskey geek, like, it's new make. How do you not get this? But the engineer at the same time is asking about the PSI going into the still, and you could just like hear the girls rolling their eyes. Like who cares about PSI, right? Our approach at Still is that everyone's people. Everyone has different interests, desires, levels of training, and we don't want whiskey to feel like some kind of giant on the hill that's unapproachable. We want to show people that the reason we're doing this is because we love it, and that passion is what guides us, and that's what motivates us. So we want to share that passion with people. We don't want to make bourbon scary. We want to make it like family, So our entire concept is driven around that idea.
I like it.
Transparency. We want to show you the barrels. We want to show you how it all works, and welcome you into our little nerdy castle on the hill.
You are the wizard of the castle, so that's perfect.
Yeah.
We will take a tour with the wizard when this is all over for sure. Good sir.
Definitely. We have, looks like, a last question here from Eric. He wants to know what your favorite Scotch, bourbon, and Irish are.
Well, and that being said, if anybody does have any last questions, now's a good time to go ahead and throw them up on screen.
Well, and you always got the comments. If you don't get it in here, you can always leave a comment. We can get you an answer.
Okay, I'm going to throw some out there. If you'll humor me, I'll narrow it down to 2 of each.
It's hard.
Hard
to do.
I can't answer it.
Scotch, I've got one that's definitely closest to my heart.
Okay.
That's going to be Springbank 10.
Okay.
Springbank 10 was in my breast pocket on my wedding day.
Nice.
I had with.
Man likes the funk. Okay.
I like it a lot. I like Campbelltown. I like Springbank. I like their identity. I like the idea of my money going to rebuilding a sector of the Scottish economy that is revitalizing. I'm all about Campbelltown. I love it. But my recent favorite is Auchentoshan.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff.
Because I was reading this handy dandy book, it's somewhere around here, the World Atlas of Whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. And what it did is it broke down all of the Scotch whiskeys into 5 different flavor camps. And there was one that was completely like, there were only a few things in it. And it was the malty and cereal category.
Okay.
It said like rich and round. It said like fruity and sweet. It said like rich and spicy. You had different kinds of camps of flavors.
Yeah.
Yep.
This one had like nothing. And it was malty and cereal. I thought, well, what the hell is that? And described it as breakfast whiskey. And I said, I don't know what that is, but I want that.
So just like malted, just malted cereal.
Yeah, so Auchentoshan is triple distilled instead of double, so it's a little thinner. They also don't rely on oak so much, so they're really trying to keep the flavor of the grain as the driving force. So for me, breakfast is like a highball. It's like a good Scotch with a touch of soda and ice, and I will have my eggs with that, like breakfast whiskey. Like, what would that be? I love really peaty stuff, but usually not before noon. This is kind of now is a perfect time for that, But
which Auchentoshan do you like the most, or which ones have you had?
I've only had the 12.
Okay.
But I really enjoyed it. It's already gone.
Somebody send this man some more Auchentoshan.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I've got several we can help you out
like
with.
Scotch Adidas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've got
Very light corn color, like very hay-like.
Yeah.
at least 4 or 5 others.
One favorite recently, I'd say, is Noah's Mill.
Okay. Yep.
Okay.
I actually gave a bottle to a friend recently who'd gotten married and said, hey, I chose it because it's rich, it's strong, and it's sweet, and I hope your marriage is too. And
That's
I
nice.
feel like that's how I describe Noah's Mill. That's how it is in my mind from now on. Cast strength, I don't care if it's sourced, it's beautiful. It really stands up and tells a beautiful.
That's all that matters.
If I'm ordering a bourbon, I want kind of like the eagleware, like that kind of like rich, round kind of a thing. Or I like the high proof, but
Which can also be rich and round because of the high proof.
Right.
Sometimes it's, you never know how you're going to get there sometimes.
yeah.
Sometimes it's the proof that gives you that big old flavor, and sometimes it really is the just what's in the barrel.
Yeah. For Irish, I've had, I don't want to exaggerate, but by putting a number on it, but I've had a ridiculous amount of Jameson in my life. Been a bartender for almost 15 years. So yeah, there's a lot of Jameson in that lifestyle. So I don't have as much of it anymore. My go-to whiskey shot these days is often a Tullamore Dew.
Okay.
I like, if I'm going to do a shot, I want something kind of thin that's easy. I'm not trying to savor the flavor. I'm trying to raise a glass with some friends and like shudder together. You know, that's what a shot is for. That's what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to end in a metallic note. So let's go with the Jameson. Thank you very much.
There was one that last time I talked to Matt, he asked, what do I want? And I said, well, I've never really been sold on Irish whiskey.
Redbreast.
And he went and found a Redbreast. I think it was 21.
Yep.
Ooh, tropical fruit for days.
And so now I like Irish whiskey.
Now I like Irish whiskey.
It's funny when people come over here and are like, oh, I don't like Scotch, I don't like Irish. I'm like, I'll solve that problem. They're like, you don't play fair. I'm like, I didn't say you're going to play fair.
Let me remedy.
Give me 2 minutes.
Yeah, give me a minute. Let me remedy that problem for you.
Then they're sending you text.
Well,
what about this Scotch? What about this Irish? Is this one good?
So, AJ has a question up here before we finish up.
Okay, let me grab that.
Normal again, can people visit the distillery and request you for a guide?
Totally. Often I'm there. I do have other tour guides. I'm usually there. I'm not always doing the tours. So we are open, let's see, Tuesday through Sunday, right? I haven't gone through my hours in a few days. And we changed it because of the sanitizer anyway. But I'm usually there on some of the busier days, like if it's a Saturday where we have tours every hour. You can imagine Saturdays are kind of a busier day. And so sometimes it's like we are just turning through bachelor and bachelorette parties all day. And so sometimes on those busy days, I'm kind of more managing the floor, kind of filling. Sometimes that's polishing glasses, and sometimes that's giving a private tour to somebody in the back, but kind of like helping the whole operation kind of choo-choo along. If you come on like a Wednesday night, it's usually me. Thursday night as well. Fridays I do the night tours. So it kind of depends. But I'll throw out my professional email is joshm@stillaustin.com. So if you would like to request me, I'll do what I can. I can't be for all of them, but I've done a whole lot of tours and I can talk you through any of it if you want.
Great.
All right, we got a $2 super chat from Eric W. for Redbreast 12 cask strength. Have you had that one?
Buddy.
That's a great.
Don't forget, you can still get your super chats in. We are monetized.
That's right.
Thank you very much, Eric. We appreciate the heck out of you, buddy.
Thank you, Eric. So before we finish up, anything else you want to share with us about, what's going on? Anything? Can't say anything coming up necessarily because, well, we don't know what's coming up and when it's coming up. So anything for people to keep their eye out for?
I would say that right now, I think it's best to remember the context of how things are changing, not just as a result of COVID-19, but as well as this industry. One of the things I touch on my tours is that, I'm not super old, but, when I started bartending, Shiner Bock was considered an import.
Yeah.
It's like an hour from Austin.
Yeah, right? I know. It's the closest most local beer you could get. It was called an import because import just meant more expensive beer.
Right.
You didn't have the term local beer.
I remember that.
Right?
I do love Shiner. Shiner is delicious.
But I had to learn what the hell a Kolsch was.
Well,
what's the India Pale Ale? It's from India then? Then why is it called India? What the heck are you guys doing?
That's a good question. Do you know the answer? Because I don't know the answer. Why is it called an Indian Pale Ale? I have no idea.
On who you ask. Yeah, there's some say that it's more bitter so that it lasts longer on a ship, and some say it's because of what they had and it's just the style. It's like talking to somebody from Michter's. It was just like a whole bunch of like tall tales. So the India Pale Ale is not like entirely clear, but it's the style that people drank in India.
And essentially, it's much like in Merida, where it's kind of just it was discovered, on accident because it was shipped, and because of the shipping of this across X amount of space, made for it to be made this specific way, so it would last longer, and that became a style.
And then some will say that they didn't have cellars in India, and it was hotter, so they had to increase the ABV so it wouldn't spoil.
I just remember as a kid, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, because that was out way before any of that stuff existed. I mean, back in the 90s, even like my grandfather, because we used to go to Lake Tahoe every year, and that's what we would drink. I mean, granted, I was like 10 at the time, but that's how it was in our family. It was important to my grandfather that we were drinking, so it was usually that and red wine. And
but I mean, wine's changed.
So.
We were all drinking big butterballs and Chardonnay. Like
True.
Rosé. We didn't call it rosé. We called it White Zinfandel or Blush. And it was sweet. You can't find a White Zinfandel today. So a lot's changed. To put a number on it, in the year 2000, there were 40 whiskey distilleries in the whole United States.
Wow.
Now there's over 100 just in Texas.
That's crazy.
I'm sorry, in the year 2000, there were 40 whiskey distilleries in the U.S.
Yeah.
Really?
Most of them were in
crap. I didn't realize that.
So, when I was walking into a gas station when I was a kid, you had a Keystone, you had a Bud Light, you had a Coors Light, you had that one fancy friend who got the Budweiser, Now we've got like 4 across of different kinds of IPA. There's more than just a Texas cooler. You've got a whole Texas store.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, pay attention to going to a liquor store. It's not always just going to be a Maker's Mark shelf in a Knob Creek.
No, it's a Maker's Mark row now.
Yeah.
Right.
Because of all the different products they have out. But then again, now it's instead of a row of bourbon, now it's, 3 or 4 rows of bourbon.
Shit, it's a whole
to accommodate for all of the different things that are out there now.
Yeah, every time you go back, there's some new product from some store you never heard of. It's wild.
So a lot's changing, and so what I would encourage, my kind of closing kind of concept would be that everybody keep your minds open, try stuff. We've all had bad experiences with different things in our lives, so whether it was tequila or gin or bourbon or scotch or peated scotch, or try things.
Absolutely.
Obviously, don't make yourself uncomfortable. Don't try things you don't like. But the situation, the industry, and our culture is evolving so quickly, especially through the COVID situation. But our industry is reinventing itself and trying to make the best superior products they can. So keep an open mind. Support locally as often as you can.
Definitely.
And let's take care of each other and focus on growing together and bonding as a community as we get through the same thing.
Absolutely. Yeah, we appreciate
Couldn't have said that better.
all the
Right.
transparency and all the stuff you guys are doing. It's awesome. Well, thank you very much, Josh. I really appreciate having on here. And thank you for everybody for joining us. And then next week we'll be having Barrel on. So it should be another fun stream next Monday night. And tomorrow's review, we have a sample that we got from Adam Fraser, the whiskey experiencer, of some Weller Folk Group. It's a store pick from Westport Wine and Spirits up in Kentucky. So thank you guys very much, and we'll see everybody next week. Cheers.
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 Don't go anywhere yet, Josh. I'm going to log off here real quick.
You don't